when I look at the some of the things that are being published, there was a story 10 days ago that said this is the worst April for the stock market since the Great Depression. 10 days later, the NASDAQ is now up in the month of April. And I haven't seen a story that says, "Oh, stock market has biggest bounce back ever." So
it certainly has gone back and forth.
I think a lot of this is media driven.
Hey, what's going on, bull runners? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into some massive updates that could shake up your portfolio. Picture this. You're watching the markets. XRP is spiking, but something feels off. The charts are screaming opportunity, yet there's a hidden trap waiting to trip you up. What's the problem? The crypto world is buzzing with new ETF launches and bold promises from the White House, but volatility on the weekend risks could catch you off guard if you're not prepared. But don't worry, I've got you covered. In the next few minutes, I'm going to be breaking down these game-changing headlines, including ProShares' new XRP ETFs, a crypto sentiment rebound, and Trump's tax-slashing tariff plans. These are the keys to navigating the market's wild swing. Stick with me because the solution is knowing exactly what these moves mean for your investments, and I'm laying it all out in simple terms. So here's the kicker. Stay with me until the end. I'm going to drop you a link for our free ebook packed with altcoin secrets to supercharge your strategy. Plus, we will be heading over to X to find out all the breaking news is happening in the crypto world today. We will also be jumping over to the XRP charts at the end of the video and looking for our next support and resistance in the markets. We'll also be looking at the short-term and long-term momentum indicators and the green signs they're flashing right now. We will also be heading over to Forex Factory to find out all of the important breaking news that'll be happening in the financial world this week, and so much more in today's video. So if you're like most people where you don't have the opportunity to spend hours a day in the crypto news like we do here for you on this channel, make sure you subscribe today. And if you're feeling bullish about this current bull run, let me know by commenting 777 down below. Before we head over to all of that crypto news, let's check the overall health of the crypto market today over at CoinMarketCap. As you can see right now, the total market cap is coming in at 2.96 trillion, on its way to that $3 trillion mark that we've been talking about, which could indicate a flip back to bullish. On the 30-day chart here, we can see we have now officially made that new higher high that we've been talking about. And if we zoom out to the yearly chart, we have definitely taken out these previous high of March 25th of 2.87 trillion. And now over the weekend, we've taken a little consolidation period here. This next week kicking off is going to be a major indicator of where we're going. Do we break above this 3 trillion? Our next level to the upside for a new market structure change is $3.15 trillion. As we take a look at the fear and greed index, we're all the way up at 53 now. Last week, we were down at 33. And remember, just a couple of weeks ago, on April 8th, we were all the way down at 15 in extreme fear. However, it is still Bitcoin season. So altcoin season index coming in at 15 out of 100. We are starting to see some altcoins catching up over the last couple of days. Bitcoin went on the early run. And as we can see, Bitcoin is currently sitting at 63.3% Bitcoin dominance at this moment. Last week was 62.8 and last month was 60.8. So it has been increasing, lots of inflows into Bitcoin. And as you know, I love the Bitcoin ETF tracker because it's really showing the volume coming in. And last week was absolutely astonishing to the upside. In the last 30 days here in the chart, there was one other up day that was decent of $200 million. But as you can see, all of last week, 100 million, 300 million, 900 million, 900 million, 400 million, and 380 million. So check this out. We zoom out for the past year. This is literally the second highest income inflows into Bitcoin ETFs, $3 billion last week. And if we go all the way out to all time, it is the second highest week ever for Bitcoin inflows. The only other time it was higher was November 17th, which was $3.3 billion. And if you remember, this was right during that super upswing in the market. So is part two, is the real bull run kicking off? We've got some great green indicators flashing, which we'll show you at the end of this video. Make sure you subscribe. And the top 5 trending coins right now, according to CoinMarketCap, number 1 is XRP at 228, Bitcoin number 2 at 94,000, Pengu coming in at 0.011 cents, up 21% the last 24 hours. BMT at 13 cents, up 46%, and JST at 4 cents, up 30%. Taking a look at our top 5 coins by total market cap, Bitcoin, of course, number 1 at 1.8 trillion. When will it surpass that $2 trillion mark? Could it happen this week? Number 2, Ethereum coming in at $217 billion. Tether at number 3 at $147 billion. XRP at number 4, hunting down that number 3 spot, coming in at $133 billion. BNB at $85 billion and Solana at $77 billion. Taking a look at the crypto calendar for this week, what is important for us? Well, first and foremost, we have the ETH Petra upgrade, which will be happening on Wednesday, the 30th. So pay attention to that. Also important news, the blue line here, JP from Japan, the Bank of Japan interest rate decision will be coming out also on Wednesday. No other major crypto news as far as that week goes. And we'll jump over here to the traditional finance markets. We're going to have a massive week. Lots of important news coming up. Number one thing is going to be the JOLTS job openings. That hits us on Tuesday at 7 a.m. Expect some extreme volatility for that. Non-farm employment, always a big number when that comes out, extremely important. Advanced GDP also coming out. This is on Wednesday, by the way. Core CPI coming out on Wednesday. So Wednesday is going to be massive. Then following up by unemployment claims, which is always very important for crypto on Thursday. And then on Friday, that's followed up by non-farm employment change and also employment rate. So I will update you each one of these every single day this upcoming week. So check back in. The forecasts are right here. We'll let you know what the actual number comes out. If it's green, it's good. If it's red, it's bad. Heading over to X to find out what's happening right now. Just in, Ripple's president, Monica Long, says Ripple has no plans to go public in 2025 and highlights an $11.3 billion valuation after share buybacks. And as you remember, Brad Garlinghouse has also come out to say that they're not going public this year, which is totally fine, maybe 2026. But they say there's no plans, there's no need. They've got plenty of funds to continue rolling as they are. As you saw in the intro of the video, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent just went nuclear after the experts' market crash prediction fell flat. He went on to say that 10 days ago, there was a story about the Great Depression hitting, and then obviously 10 days later, we are back full recovery for the month of April. And he goes on to say, I think this is media driven. And in the most exciting news for what's going on right now, the SEC has proved a public launch date for April 30th for ProShares XRP Trust ETF. Now, as you know, there's already an ETF officially live. The first official ever ETF went live in Brazil, but this will be the first one going live here in the United States that is approved by the SEC. Now, the one caveat about this ETF, the ProShares Trust, this is not the spot trading ETF yet. Those are going to be coming later. This is a leverage trading option for the ETF. And in some global news, as you guys know, I've been following this very closely. El Salvador continues to buy Bitcoin, and they just got a massive loan from the IMF. The IMF came out and said, you're not allowed to buy Bitcoin. And then the president of El Salvador, literally the same week, posts an image of him accumulating more Bitcoin. But now they're still at war. And check a look at this.
Let me say that I can confirm that they continue to comply with their commitment of non-accumulation of Bitcoin by the overall fiscal sector, which is the performance criteria that we have. But on top of that, I think this is very important for the discussion in El Salvador. The program of El Salvador is not about Bitcoin. It's much more, it's much deeper. It's structural reforms in terms of governance, in terms of transparency. There's a lot of progress there. And also on fiscal. And authorities are making a lot of progress implementing the reform. We're preparing the first review of the program now. This is, as you know, a 40 months program with $1.4 billion, but what the money that they can mobilize from other IFIs, it's about $3.5 billion.
So there it is. The IMF saying that El Salvador will stop buying Bitcoin, but at the same time, Bitcoin continues to be accumulated by El Salvador. Maybe because this such a strong stance that came out just now, they will take that, as he said, 40 months off. So basically 4 years of not buying any Bitcoin. I don't see that happening. Maybe they're using other funds to continue buying Bitcoin. So jumping over to our first headline, ProShares to launch leverage short XRP futures ETFs on April 30th. So first up, ProShares is dropping 3 XRP future ETFs on April 30th. And this is a big deal for traders. These funds are going to be the Ultra XRP, Short XRP, and Ultra Short XRP, which is offering 2x leveraged or bet against XRP's price without holding the actual token. These ETFs are going to be tied to futures contracts, not spot prices, and they've got the SEC's green light after no objections during the review period. And why does this matter? Well, these ETFs open the door for traditional investors to jump into XRP through their brokerage accounts, potentially boosting trading volume and price swings for XRP. There's already signs of XRP's liquidity outpacing other altcoins, making it a prime candidate for institutional attention. But here's the catch. Leverage ETFs are very risky and they're designed for day trading. So holding them long term could amplify losses if the market turns. So if you're not an accredited investor, you're not going to be able to jump into these ETFs. But if you are wanting to get into leverage trading, whether it's 1x, 2x, 10x, you can actually trade futures over on Blowfin, and you can basically trade every single coin that's available on Blowfin via futures. You can long them, short them, whatever. If you like to day trade, you want to trade on a small time scale, you can jump over there. In fact, we have a 10% link. We've partnered up with Blowfin. If you would like to use our link down in the description below, you get a 10% bonus. We also get a credit for that to help us make videos like this and continue building the channel. So if you're someone who wants to try day trading, get into day trading, make sure you check this out. And there's a possibility, though, that you don't even know what you're doing day trading. That would be like the dumbest thing you could ever possibly do. And by the way, none of this information is financial advice. Do not buy or sell or trade or anything that we talk about on this channel until you do your own research. Speaking of doing some research, Altcoin Pro University, link also down in the description. We have now literally just launched Technical Analysis Essentials. So the one and only Paul, another bull runner on the channel, went through and built out an extreme course for trading, whether it's day trading, swing trading. You want to learn how to do technical analysis, read the charts properly. Join Altcoin Pro down in the description below. Sign up today, go through the course, become an expert. Then you can try your expertise over on Blowfin, clicking the link down in the description below. So very exciting news, ProShares. This is the first official United States ETF, but we have tons of them. On top of that, we also have the ETFs waiting for the SEC approval: Bitwise, Canary, 21 Shares, Wisdom Tree, Grayscale, CoinShares, ProShares. That one already got accepted. Franklin Templeton, Volatility Shares. Also, additional notes: unverified claims by Xpost mention additional issuers like Invesco, VanEck, Fidelity, ARK Invest, Galaxy Digital, Hashdex, and Tuttle Capital Management. And we do know Hashdex actually was the very first ever ETF approved. That one was in Brazil. So very exciting times ahead for XRP. But in reality, it's very exciting times ahead for crypto in whole. Crypto sentiment is finally recovering, but weakened liquidity remains a risk. So as you're watching this video, the later in the day, the markets actually open midday, about 3 p.m. Pacific time, because there are other countries open up markets before us. But our real New York Stock Exchange will open on Monday morning. But the markets generally Friday night, Saturday, Sunday morning suck. There's very, very little liquidity. And if there is a pump that happens on the weekends, it's almost always filling in the gap that next week. So we don't want that to actually happen anyway. So the crypto market remains vulnerable to structural weakness, including the lack of weakened liquidity, despite a significant improvement in investor sentiment. And we saw that with the fact that Fear and Greed Index over 50. And we also saw that with the significant fact that prices have essentially consolidated until about now. When you're watching this video, prices are starting to light up a little bit. Risk appetite appeared to return among crypto investors this week as the U.S. President Donald Trump adopted a softer tone, saying that the import tariffs on Chinese goods may come down substantially. Now, as you know, they have not come down officially yet. They're still all in place, but at least reducing the rhetoric and the strength behind them has really helped the market think that they could be lowered. Bitcoin staged a nearly 11% recovery during the past week, but its rally had previously been limited by Sunday liquidity dynamics. Redstone blockchain oracle firms Marcin Kazmierzak said, while improved sentiment creates a more stable foundation, cryptocurrency markets are still susceptible to rapid movements during periods of reduced trading volume. Cryptocurrency markets may have priced in the full extent of tariff-related concerns, according to Ariel Barth, principal research analyst at crypto intelligence firm Nansen. He says, it feels like we've maxed out the tariff-related fear. While many remain uncertain about the things that were headed over the next month or so, it also seems like markets were just waiting for the slightest signal that we're back in the game. So this article correlating with the fact that the fear and greed index continues to climb, the inflows into the ETFs are climbing. Even the Ethereum ETFs got some love last week. We do know that XRP's ETFs got some love last week, even though they barely just launched. This upcoming week could be absolutely historic. On top of that, we got some more good news when it comes about taxes, federal taxes to be substantially reduced once tariffs set in. So I know a lot of people were freaking out about this tariff situation going, oh no, we need to make a deal. We need to make a deal. But the reality is the original plan for what Trump wanted to do with tariffs was not just a scare tactic to make a deal. It was to actually start collecting revenue from these other countries. Remember, he's creating the external revenue service, not internal. So as you know, the United States government goes around every year and collects money from you, the taxpayer. Well, what if they were collecting money from other countries that were doing business with the United States instead? And that was the plan. And now Trump is trying to really enact that plan in action now. On Trump's Truth Social, he came out and said that he wants to cut taxes for individuals making less than $200,000 a year. In fact, he's even been quoted as saying he doesn't want them to pay any taxes. And in fact, President Trump said the External Revenue Service, a reference to the funding of the federal government exclusive through import tariffs instead of current model of collecting taxes through the IRS, is currently materializing. So it is actually happening. And as we can see here in Trump's post, when tariffs cut in, many people's income taxes will be substantially reduced, maybe even eliminated. Focus will be on the people making less than $200,000 a year. Also, massive number of jobs are already being created. Now, obviously, if you watched the news or you look at social media, it's been nothing but, fire and brimstone. Oh no, the world is coming to an end. But we don't see the data that he's seeing. And we will start to see those unemployment rate data is coming out, but also new jobs created. That data is coming out as well. That's why we also go over the traditional finance world news every single week. So with new plants and factories currently being built or planned, it will be a bonanza for America. The External Revenue Service is happening. Now, of course, right now, we are definitely seeing some short-term pain. I know friends that are going through it. They're having to find other ways to manage certain things. It does happen, but this is a long-term play. Research conducted by accounting automation company Dancing Numbers found that Trump's proposal could save the average American $134,809 in lifetime tax payments. On April 2nd, Trump was going to do sweeping tariffs, including 10% baseline on all countries. However, the Trump administration walked back its tariff policies several times, flip-flopping on tariff rates and when tariff regime would fully take effect. So would you support an external revenue service versus an internal revenue service? Let me know down in the comments section if you would be happy for people that make $200,000 or less to pay zero in income tax. All right, guys, so we're going to jump over to XRP and the charts here. We are looking at our weekly spider lines. For those of you new here, during the 2018 drop on the weekly charts, if you draw a ray, which is a drawing tool on TradingView, and you use the pivot point of the high of 2021, which was April of 2021, it will give you trend lines into the future, and that's what we're using right now as our support and resistance. And as we look right here on the weekly charts, we can see how well they've actually worked. In fact, during this drop, even though we had that crazy extension all the way down to the 50 exponential moving average, which also works really well, but the bodies of these candles were held right here at the $1.90 spider line. Now, the next line that we have to surpass, which is this one right here, which is the $2.24 line. What's really exciting, we're on the weekly charts right here. We have 3 hours at the time of recording this video left. The next move to the upside resistance-wise is 250, and then after that, it's all the way up to 280. But what's more exciting than everything else is our short-term, long-term momentum waves here. So if we look at our long-term momentum wave, we're using the Wolfpack indicator. Once it broke above the green line here, once it broke above the zero line here and turned green, we were bullish, and we've been running bullish ever since, which is very good. It did have a check down to the downside, but we also have our shaft trend cycle, which is our short-term trend, And that has been riding bearish for quite some time on the weekly charts here, as we can see. So it has reset to 0. So the next move to the upside will be resetting to the 100 level. Last time we reset from 0 was right here on October 28th. And then all of a sudden, November kicks in. In November, the second week of November is when we really saw the shot to the upside. And if we remember what we were just taking a look back at, the ETF tracker, the largest inflow ever of ETFs for Bitcoin was the third week of November of 2024. So we are now rolling into the second largest ever inflow into Bitcoin. And we know Bitcoin is the leader of the market. So if liquidity is coming to Bitcoin, it's coming to all coins, potentially. Obviously, right now, the Bitcoin dominance being at 63%, not very exciting. We hope that that has a pullback. But all of these signs line up. As we can see right here with the short trend, shaft trend cycle, once it starts to cycle up, this is when it cycled up for us for XRP. The cycle ending before turning red was all the way up here after it made a new all-time high at $3.40, and that was leaving from 55 cents. So weekly, lots of potential to the upside, and we'll know here in the next 3 hours, because once we finish and close this candle, we'll get an indication from our shaft trend cycle. So tomorrow we'll be able to have better insight for you. Make sure you come back, subscribe today. Let's take a look at the 3-day though. The 3-day has been climbing, as we can see. It didn't quite get to 0, got to 1.3, checked back to the upside. And as we can see right now, that started on April 19th, and that was a doji candle, a side-by-side doji. And now we've been having 2 consecutive candles to the upside on the 3-day candle. That is also coming to a close. So it 1, 2, 3 green candles in a row. We are still showing some movement to the upside in the short. We got room, right? In fact, if we go back and we look, last time it checked down and made a good run to the upside, that's when we got all the way up into the 260. In reality, we hit the 290 range, right? During this move. Then we had a reset. Then we had a nice move. Then we had this reset. And unfortunately, at this point, we had a very short-lived move to the upside, and it came back down, and we turned bearish on our long-term momentum wave. We do have a hidden bullish divergence, and this could be crossing above the 0 line. Also, this candle closes in 3 hours. We're going to be at it or breaking through it. So we've already continued to know we are bullish green on the weekly. We're potentially turning bullish green on the 3-day. We are now officially bullish green on the daily, and we haven't been bullish green since we dropped below it back on February 4th. And when we did switch bullish green on the long-term momentum wave, which was November 9th, that was the start of our push to the upside. And even checking in on the 2-day chart, which I don't use very often, you can see we have been down below the 0 line on the 2-day chart since February 24th and haven't broken above. So the same thing goes here. This one closes in a day and 4 hours. So we will know essentially by Wednesday or Thursday of next week on these higher time frames if they are 2-day and 3-day candles going to flash above the 0 line, also indicating bullish. Right now, we've already hit it on the daily. We've already been maintaining it on the weekly. If we take a look at Bitcoin, we can see that it flashed above the 0 line on April 20th, which was here. And that was a day before the big move to the upside. Right now, Bitcoin is running into a supply and demand zone, and it's also running into the 618 of the Fibonacci. So we are potentially maxing out on Bitcoin, looking for a pullback to the downside. If that happens, we may also have that in other cryptos. However, if we break through this level, so we get some volume inflows. So the good thing is, right? The good thing is this weekend, we didn't have this massive pump to the upside. When the CME, the futures of Bitcoin opens, it has to fill in the futures gap. Because remember, that's what we've been suffering through a lot of this volatility is you get some weird pump on the weekend and then Bitcoin has to pull back down into the fill the gap, blah, blah, blah. Now, there is a pretty gnarly gap right now on Bitcoin, which brings us back to the 382 level right here of the Fibonacci, which could come down and hit that and then make its way back up. That would be my bearish sentiment if it has to come fill in this fair value gap, make the run there. There is also a fair value gap that it could fill right here on this candle. If you zoom in on it, there's a fair value gap, but that brings us back to 85. So that would basically be a fake out rather than a breakout. But if we break above the 618, back above 96,000, we could really see that return back to 100 grand, where we're going to run into a Bitcoin resistance of 101,000. But going back to XRP, we have now broken above the zero line. So we're technically bullish on the short term. You can see we did have a very strong candle today that closes in 3 hours that did break through this 22, 23, 24 cent resistance line. Remember, it was a resistance here on April 2nd, a resistance here on April 13th, a resistance here on April 22nd, 23rd. Didn't even quite get there, didn't quite get there. Yesterday it got there, the 26th, and now we finally broke through. So it had multiple attempts to try to break this level, and it finally did. We also have a big, strong bullish cross of the 10 exponential moving average crossing over the 30. We are still several days away from the 30 crossing the 50. So we are not full on bull. Okay. So we're technically bullish. It's looking good. It's looking strong. Everything's starting to go that way, as we can see here. But where it gets really exciting, as we can see, the 10 exponential crossed the 30, then it crossed the 50, but really the 30 crossed the 50 to the upside. So now you got the 10, the 30, and the 50 going in the same direction. However, if we look at the current scenario, the 10, the 30, and the 50 dropping down, the 10 is going up, the 30 starting to go up, but the 50 exponential moving is still considered down, right? It's trading sideways. It's starting to make the turn, but the 30 has to cross over there. So that's why I'm saying Wednesday, Thursday, we'll have some really strong confirmation, because then we'll get our 3-day information, we'll get our 2-day information. And then, of course, tonight, when this weekly candle closes, we may see a nice move to the upside on our shaft trend cycle, resetting from 0 back to 100. So as you know, me personally, I have been bullish all throughout this turmoil. It's been a struggle, but because this weekly has been showing such strength still, I've been bullish on all of the time frames. We did have to suffer for a little while, obviously, but I remain bullish. So where do we need to see things going? Well, first and foremost, we do have a support level right here. If it starts to drop back down, back to the 209, 205 area. But reality, we just broke our resistance of 224 and the 10 exponential moving average. We have to claim this as a support. Like, this needs to be our new support level here, 225. And then we can make our move up to here, which is where we get into that $2.50 range. Then after that, we're going to be getting back to 280. What will be really interesting to see is how quickly these other ETFs, is it going to be like dominoes where they fall, and then we get 3 consecutive massive weeks to the upside like we did from the 55 cent range, which was a 312% run. So let's see, what would a 312% run look like for us right now from where we are at? So a 312% run would put us basically $9.50. And like I was saying, I was just tracking those 3 massive weeks in a row. But what if we also go ahead and throw in the 4th massive week before the pullback that it went through? So now it's a 408% move to the upside. And if we do a 408% move to the upside for XRP, that gets us to the $11.70 range. So as I'm saying, I'm confident. I'm actually optimistic on XRP in the short term running, maybe potentially 100%, 400% from where we're at right now. But first and foremost, we have to bring a support level to 225, break through the 250 resistance, and then 280. Then I will be talking to you more about that. So make sure you subscribe. We're going to continue bringing this information every single day. Don't forget to click the links down in the description. Join Altcoin Pro University if you want to learn how to do charting. Sign up for Blowfin if you want to do some day trading. If you need funding for your business, click the link for business down in the below, and we'll see you on the next one.